Record on this computer. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Construction Marketing with Purpose. My name is Monica Pitts, and I've been kind of hosting these episodes a little bit on an island for a little while, but we have my cohort Stacy with us today. And we also have Len Toenjes from AGC Missouri. And so he's president of AGC of Missouri. And today we're going to talk about using tech to hire construction employees. And I'm pretty excited about digging into this topic. So to kick ourselves off, Len, why don't you tell us a little bit about AGC and what you do there?
Happy to. Thanks for the opportunity to be part of the podcast today. AGC of Missouri is a statewide construction association. We basically serve the entire state of Missouri other than the Kansas City marketplace. We represent both building contractors and highway contractors. We have about 530 firms that belong to AGC of Missouri statewide. We provide advocacy, legislative services. We provide networking opportunities. We provide training and workforce issues, safety training, inclusion, diversity services, and labor relations service for those folks who choose to work with a collective bargaining agreement. So we basically have a phone with about 50 apps on it. That is the best analogy for what AGC of Missouri does. You've got a lot of different opportunities to participate, and it's just up to each one of those members to decide what flavor they need.
So one of the things that we were talking about before we came on the air was just the need for using technology in hiring and like what is bringing that about. Like, tell us a little bit about what the hiring market looks like right now. I mean, I know what it's like in my universe, and it's not easy. Like Stacy and I have been in so many interviews over the last year hiring people. So tell us what it looks like in the construction industry.
Well, in our strategic plan, one of the primary things in our strategic plan is workforce recruitment. And we are having to go to every place we can to look for people for construction industry. For years, the construction industry has not had the most positive image of working with your hands and actually building something. People are a lot more enamored with a four-year college degree. There's nothing wrong with a four-year college degree, but at the same time, there's nothing wrong with a technical or trade career either. I think a lot of parents blanch when their child comes and says, "Oh, I'd like to be a carpenter, or I'd like to be a pipe fitter, or I'd like to work on a paving crew." They're like, "Oh my God, why did you want to do that? Why don't you go to college? Why don't you get a poli-sci degree? Why would you in your wildest dreams want to do that?" So we fight that image all the time. And we also have to look everywhere we can. And hence technology is playing a more important role as we have to look into various places to find the workers we need. I met with one of our contractors not that long ago and said, "I could start another paving crew tomorrow. I've got the work, I've got the contracts, I've got the equipment. If I could find 11 people, I would hire them tomorrow and start another paving crew." And that is not just one person saying that. It's pretty much across the board.
It is. And Stacy and I hear that from our clients all the time. Stacy, I know that you spend a lot of time helping people plan out websites and, marketing campaigns that will help them talk about themselves. One of the things that I would love to just highlight for a second is the awesome parts of working in the construction industry, because I've interviewed so many people about the jobs that they have to offer. And I really feel like they start at a much higher base pay than a lot of even four-year graduate starting like entry-level positions would. And also, I feel like there's a lot of opportunities for advancement in your industry. You guys have great benefits. You have great time. Like there's periods of the year where, you know, if you're working outside, you don't have to work. I'm like, it's like great.
Well, and you're right. I mean, there is a lot. I started as a carpenter apprentice. I was one of those people that did drop out of college. I went to college for 1 year. It just did not resonate with me. It didn't appeal with me. My mom could have killed me. I dropped out of college when I was 19 and I started working at the trade. And my wife says to me, has said it many times, the first day you came home from the apprenticeship training, it was like the light bulb clicked. All of a sudden you were motivated. You found what you wanted to do. And I worked with my tools for a number of years. I started teaching some night classes. I got involved with the association. So even though I'm sitting here today behind a desk with a blue collar shirt on, I was a blue collar worker for a number of years. And that time that I spent at the trade was extremely, extremely rewarding. Many great memories and really skills that it's like learning to swim. Once you learn how to work with your hands, it's something you never forget. It's very satisfying. Certainly satisfying from a benefits and a revenue perspective, but also just in as a person personally.
I think there's so many people that are forced into this college thing, and it's just not for everyone. It's really not. And I think that normalizing that it's okay not to go to college or to go to a tech school or something like that would just be really great advancement in our labor force.
Yeah, I mean, a big part of it has to do with the system. I mean, high school administrators and principals, you manage to what you're measured on. And
Right.
how many times at graduation do we have this great big ceremony? Everybody gets their caps and gowns when they walk across the stage at high school. And it's what percentage of these graduates are going on to higher education. Oh my God, that's like the most honorific thing. If 90 or 95% or whatever percentage of the graduates are going on to a four-year institution, when in fact, if you look at the numbers, only about 30 to 35% of folks who finish high school actually make it or continue on to pursue a full four-year degree. So what about the other 65%? So it's sort of this lost majority out there that end up stumbling, whether they end up in the military, whether they end up in I know in your particular line of work, I know a lot of folks will go to a community college and get their 2-year or they'll hang in there long enough to get their Microsoft certificate or whatever sort of certificate they need, and boom, they go find a job. Or we get people that come into the trade. So it's unfortunate that the folks at that secondary level don't pay a little more attention to construction careers, and that's something that we're working hard on as an association.
And so now it's like you're bridging the communication gap and you're trying to get in front of people where they are, right? Because we want to catch people when they're in the middle of a transition or considering a new career, or just considering a career in general, right? And almost all those people are now hanging out online.
Yep.
because there's like, that's where we find things. I know that like everyone that we've hired, with the exception of one person, we found online in the last year. So they're all out there. So Stacy, why don't you kick us off with some of these like really pointed tech to hire questions?
Absolutely. So, Len, I would love to hear from you and hear about why you think it is important for companies to start incorporating technology when they're trying to hire in the construction industry.
Well, I think for a lot of reasons. Number one, I think that trying to technology allows us to bring what is going on a job site onto a person's desk or into their eyes and ears in a way that there's no replacement for actually being in a quarry and watching a blast go off, or walking on a bridge while it's under construction. But that's very unrealistic. It's unfortunately, that's a small part of what we can actually do to have students or people do that. So using technology, using the website is one way. We have a website that we have put up. It's called Missouri.byf.org, and BYF stands for Build Your Future. And that is open to God in the world. There are a lot of states have put these websites up now that they have information about. If young people say they want to get into construction, quite frankly, they don't know the difference between an iron worker and a sheet metal worker. They don't know the difference between a brick mason or a cement mason. And there are differences. They're totally different skill sets, and they don't understand what those are. So by going to this Missouri.byf.org, there are videos that illustrate what each craft does. There are trading cards that describe in language or in written form what some of the skills are that are required. There are charts there that show what the pay is, what the benefits are, what the pay ranges are for each one of these crafts. We have a list of all the different institutions across the state of Missouri that are entry portals into construction careers. So those things, it'd be impossible for us to get that out to every student and everybody who needs it, or parents. So having that technology portal is big. At the same time, a lot of our folks are using technology for professional careers. I mean, they need estimators and project managers and accountants and clerical support staff members and all the other components of, safety professionals, all those things that they need to make up a construction company. And you and I know the days of putting a classified ad in the newspaper are way in the rearview mirror. And so using online things for that are critically important. I did just a couple of weeks ago, I was at a meeting, and there are, in terms of trying to get students interested in careers, construction careers, the use of virtual reality goggles now is something that some folks are moving to. That there are folks that are doing 360 videos, and quite frankly, you can take a box with 20 sets of VR goggles in it, ship it to a school. All the students put on the goggles, so they're not sitting there looking at their iPhone or looking out the window. They have the goggles on, and they log in to this virtual reality presentation of sitting in a cab of an excavator and watching the controls go, or walking through a sheet metal duct, and having all that sort of thing. So that allows us not only to get into schools, but quite frankly, it allows us to get into correctional institutions. Those folks need jobs also when they get out. There's no way we're going to get them out to a job site. So by use of some of this virtual reality technology, it's another opportunity for us to bring the job site, anything we can do to bring the job site in front of people so they can catch the excitement of what it's really like and it's not just reading it out of a book or hearing it from a teacher who wouldn't, has never been on a job site either.
Mhm.
So the technology really allows us to bridge that gap much more effectively than we ever could in the past.
It sounds like education is sort of the key. So we talked about how college isn't for everyone, but educating students that there is more out there is really the key. However, when you say, okay, we want to reach all students in Missouri and that's virtually impossible, well, it sounds daunting. Does technology, I think I have two follow-up questions. Does technology replace that like face-to-face recruitment? And then also, how do you get out to those people? Are there specific groups that companies can start targeting to get this message out?
Technology doesn't replace it, but it allows us a broader reach. We still are doing career fairs.
Mhm.
We have 3 career fairs coming up. In addition to this Build Your Future, which is the website, we are starting some Build My Future events, which are actual career fairs. So we'll have a career fair in Springfield. We'll have a career fair in Columbia. We'll have a career fair in St. Louis, where students can come and have a visit, contractors, and where it's applicable, trade union representatives or apprentice programs or career technical education schools are there, so that the students can actually see, talk, put their hands on some concrete, drive some nails, do some things that are tactile. You can't do that on a website. You can't learn how to swim on the internet. You have to get in the water. So that is so we're doing a combination of both. But as I said, I think with COVID related issues
Mhm.
recently, getting large groups together, we had to cancel these Build My Future things for the last 2 years. So that's 2 years that were lost there. And I think also the technology allows us to get it to the parents, because obviously the parents or the family are key elements in helping a student make a choice. So we can have the things at the school, we can do those, but getting it out to the parents is a big thing. As far as company participation as individual companies, certainly I think it's an extremely daunting task for them to assemble the information that we have done as a trade association. So any employer watching this, they don't need to be a member of AGC of Missouri. I'd certainly love it if they were, but anybody who's watching or listening to this doesn't need to be a member to put a link on their website to missouri.byf.org, and they've automatically got a recruitment portal set up. They've got a place to go start advertising for workers or providing information, and they can certainly augment that with their own particular jobs that they may have open or whatever. So I think that companies can do it on their own, but it's why reinvent the wheel, I guess, is the way I look at it.
Yeah, and they absolutely can do it on their own, but so many of them don't have the resources to do that, and you're really providing that resource. That's a wonderful
And yeah, and they
tool
can
for
take
them.
it. They can take it and tailor it. I mean, if they choose to build a somewhat basic sort of a thing about their company and the openings they have and the opportunities and the benefits and things that are specific to their firm, they can certainly embed this link in there, and that takes them to a broader perspective.
So, do you think that the way that companies sell themselves also has an impact on people wanting to come to work in the construction industry, but for a specific company?
I really think it. I really think it does. I think that the young people are the average worker today is not the same construction worker that showed up 40 years ago. AGC of America has started a program called Culture of Care. And Culture of Care is a big shift, I think, for the construction industry. When I worked at the trade, when I started as an apprentice, it was basically a culture of, I don't care. I don't care what you want. Here's the way it's going to be.
Right.
That is not the worker that's showing up today. That is a totally different type of individual we're dealing with. So things having to do with mental health issues, with financial issues, with family issues, you know, with racial and gender issues. All those things have to be taken into account. It takes a whole different management set, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it. A superintendent or a foreman has to be much more tuned into this. To just bark out orders doesn't work. I mean, you get a lot of turnover. Some people will respond to that, but I think in the world we live in today, that's not the way you're going to manage a job and keep people. So having that different approach to recruiting is one thing, but you have to have a different approach to retaining people also. It doesn't do you any good to bring people in the door if they're gone 2 or 3 weeks later because the boss yelled at them, or they couldn't get daycare, or whatever else may be there. There's that follow-up component that a company needs to be mindful of also.
Yeah, absolutely. Retaining an employee and getting an employee to come to work for you is far more of a sales process, I think, than it used to be. And I don't think we always look at it that way. Correct.
I mean, that's I think in this in the visits I'm making with our members, I mean, this one individual I was talking to said, if I could get somebody that would show up 4 days a week, I'd be elated. I'd hire them tomorrow. You know, so and this was what you would consider a crusty old construction guy. And when he said that, I was shocked. It just blew me away. It's like, that is, it used to be if you couldn't be there 6 days a week, you know, they didn't want you. So I think that the smarter companies, or the folks who are going to succeed in the future, are more responsive and have a better balance of the attention that they pay to retention and recruitment concurrently.
Mm-hmm. What do you think happens if we don't? What do you think happens if we don't start using technology to hire employees?
I think if you don't use technology to employees, you're going to be left in the dust. I don't think you can rely on word of mouth. I think if you think small, you're going to stay small. I think that making the investment in technology, making the investment in building a strong website, making the investment in having a strong social media presence, doing those sort of things. 90% of the young people today, everything we do has to be mobile. Everything has to be enabled to be able to look at on the cell phone or the iPad or the tablet or whatever. So using those technologies is quite frankly, in many instances, the only way you're going to reach out to people. Using just word of mouth or trade advertising or family members or whatever, that'll work to some extent, but that's not going to, if you're relying on that to populate your entire workforce, it's not going to happen.
Right.
We just don't know enough people to find everyone that we need, really. And
drive
maybe
up and down the street. Look at every fast food restaurant. Look at every mechanic shop. Look at every store. I mean, you can't, sticking a sign up on the outside of the building you're not gonna have people knocking on your door coming in to want to run a paver or a jackhammer or a crane. Those are sophisticated jobs that require some sophisticated training, and just somebody stumbling in off the street, is that really what you want? For that you're going to put somebody. Construction has become a very sophisticated industry. You've got computer controlled equipment, you've got a lot of safety requirements as things have gotten bigger and processes have changed. You have to have some pretty good cognitive skills, and I'm not going to take somebody that just walked in because they saw a sign on the outside of my building and stick them on a couple $100,000 piece of equipment and say, here, have at it. That requires some active recruitment and some active training and retention.
Well, and two, I think that even in the last year and a half, we've seen that you can't post a sign on your door and get anybody, really, because people aren't going into places and they don't see those things. And so we can use that technology to bridge that gap and get out in front of them, because almost every one of them is on their smartphone.
Exactly. That's why something like these VR glasses is the opportunity to actually take the job site to people. Or the websites allow you to bring the job site onto somebody's phone or onto their laptop. So those sort of portals are the things that we need to have investing in, and we're continuing to invest in to satisfy the industry needs. It's all-in approach. We all have to work on this together.
And so we've talked a lot about the education side of it and getting people interested in construction. So I would love to spend a little bit of time talking about the physical hiring of people and using, tech and using things to make that process easier. I know one thing that I see when I talk to clients often is that they have to have somebody come in to actually apply, or they have to physically print something off to apply. And I know many, many people who don't have the ability to do either one of those things, because either they don't have a printer at home or they are working another job that they can't get away from. Can you tell me a little bit about some of the technology that you see in the industry to kind of bridge that gap and actually get applicants in the door who've already decided to work in construction?
Well, construction, unfortunately or fortunately, is a project that, the working from home option is not an option. You've got to be at the job site. You can't perform, you can't put in a sewer line from home. You've got to be on the job site. So I would say our industry right now is still, I think some companies have gone to somewhat of an online application, but quite frankly, so much of it still requires a person to come to an apprenticeship registration center, or come to a company job site, or to come to a company office, complete whatever forms. I mean, I'm sure some folks are using a kiosk. I know that at one of our apprentice programs, there's a kiosk set up where people come in and log in and, enter their application information and those sort of things. But they've got to be there in person in most instances to enter a construction job.
I feel sorry. I
Go
was
ahead,
say,
Monica.
I feel like that one of the things that I wish, and we talk with our construction clients about it, is showing the flexibility that you do have. Like, we know that workers value flexibility, and what they don't understand is that working from home is not the only form of flexibility that you can offer as a business. And I feel like even just helping our clients transition to offer online applications is just one way that we can already show that we offer this form of flexibility, because it's not, there's construction crews running day and night. So you honestly have a flexible schedule because you can pick when you want to work, right? And if you need time off, you have sick leave when you have to pick your kid up from school. I mean, like, so there is flexibility built in. I'm just not sure that people are doing a very good job of expressing it, because it's not just about working from home. There's
Well,
other ways to be flexible.
I think when you talk about a dynamic career, construction certainly is a dynamic career in that regard, because you do have the number one, you don't build the same project over and over and over again. You're not like you're working in a bank where you're processing checks, or you're an accountant where you're balancing the books at the end of every month. Every job is different. Every day is different. The temperature is different. The weather conditions are different. The people you're working with are different. The job site is different every day. It better be different every day. Something better be changing on the job site. So you've got a very dynamic set of work conditions there. You do have, as you said, the average construction worker works somewhere around 1,400 to 1,500 hours a year. So that's out of a total of available 2,000 hours. So because of work or waiting on materials or waiting on equipment, you do have those on and off times. So there's certainly a dynamic there. Plus, you're always working with a different crew. Most of the time in construction, you're not working alone. You're working with a crew of 3 or 4 or 5 people, if in some of the trades, you have to have, if you're going to be setting trusses on a roof, you have to have somebody on the ground to hook the trusses up. You have to have people at the building to fasten the trusses. If you're setting steel, you have to have people on the ground hooking up the steel. You have to have people up in the air at each end of a beam to position it and fasten it to the columns. So in every one of these instances, yes, you have some flexibility. You're working with different people. You also have responsibility to others. Quite frankly, if I have a crew of 3 people and the steel's going to show up that morning and I can't be there because, whatever, it's not just me that's missing work. It's my other team members also. So there's a certain team aspect to it that a lot of folks don't understand. So there's a good combination of dynamic flexibility and responsibility that goes into a successful construction worker.
So Len, you have mentioned that they need a website, they need a social media presence. Monica mentioned an online employment application so that we can actually get applications in the door. Are there other pieces of technology that we can use in the physical hiring process? So we talked about it in the realm of education and letting people know that the construction industry is such a great place to work. But are there other pieces of technology that you see your members using in like the physical hiring process?
I think probably post-hire is part of it, as far as orientation to the company and understanding what the company does and what sort of projects they do. I think a lot of companies will have a website that shows what sort of projects they work on. I mean, so many companies now follow their owners wherever they go. Technology has allowed companies not to be just based in Columbia or just based in Springfield or just based in wherever. If they are retained by somebody who's building Walgreens, they may be building Walgreens in a 3 or 4 state area.
Right.
And so the technology not only allows a construction thing, but I think as a new employee, as you're being hired and as you're trying to understand what the company does, having that information about what sort of work the company does, what sort of projects they do, what their footprint is, what sort of employee policies they have, what sort of things they do for their employees, and what sort of culture they have to help people feel as part of the company are all components of a strong presence, a strong technology presence for these folks.
So you're talking about like almost publicly displaying what their company is, what they do, what they're all about, as well as how they can benefit the employee through true benefits as you think about them, but also like we talked about flexibility and different things like that. So having that information out there is really good.
Yeah, it helps people feel as if they're part of something. It helps them understand, construction is a team sport, and it helps them understand that they're part of the team. They can take pride in the company that they work for. They can take pride in the projects they build. And that's sort of thing. I see a lot of social media presence on projects that are being completed or projects that are started. It's a great place for companies to post videos of setting the last piece of steel, or installing the last door, or the ribbon cutting, or whatever. And they can have pictures of the construction team, recognize folks that way. So there are a lot of opportunities in technology there to help people after they're hired, or even before they're hired, understand that this is a place that I would like to work.
Yeah.
And help me get on boarded.
I think
I know
Oh,
many of our construction friends are not super technological yet, especially when we get into the owners and the people who are really the decision makers in construction. So sometimes we use the word tech phobic, which is a little bit degrading, I think. So maybe we should stop using that, but it's kind of the reality. So we've recognized that this is super important. Are there people that can help those construction owners and managers that aren't as tech savvy, or how do they engage in this, like education and hiring online and showing what their company culture is and all of those things?
Well, ultimately, their job is to build things. Their job is not to be a techie person. Their job is to look for work opportunities. Their job is to build a good construction team. Their job is to manage their jobs safely and make sure that the clients that they're working for are happy. I would hope that the smart construction executive hires a company like MayeCreate to do that work for them. I don't want to sit here, even as a trade association executive, I don't want to sit here and screw around building my website. I don't want to sit here and screw around building my database. I want to have people I can call who I can trust to do the job for me. So if I'm sitting in the C-suite, I want to call you or someone similar to you. I don't want to say that. There's nobody similar to MayeCreate.
Oh, thanks, Len.
So I want to make sure that the smart person hires good subcontractors and hires good support team, and uses somebody that can do that for me. That's I know enough that I can get on a podcast. I know that enough that I can create a podcast. AGC of Missouri. A couple of years ago, I started our own podcast. I podcast AGCMO, and it's another way to get the word out. That's as far as I want my technology to go. I don't want to build the website, but there again, it's all subcontracted out. It's all third party operations.
So where they know that their strengths are inside of the construction project and they're hiring subcontractors for the things that are not in their realm, they also need to do that for their business, whether it be IT or marketing or HR or something like that. You're saying that they need to go out and find those companies because they definitely exist.
I think there are companies of a certain size, when you're talking about large national firms or folks like that have the wherewithal to have full-time IT people or full-time web designers. Those are few and far between. If I look at our membership of our 530 companies, 80% of them are small businesses. There are the large folks, and I get that, but the vast majority of folks in the construction industry, we are a very fragmented industry. You know, if you go to buy a computer, you know, it's going to be one of three companies. If you go to get on an airplane, it's going to be one of four airlines. If you go to start a construction project, you've got thousands of companies to choose from. So it's a very fragmented industry, a lot of small businesses. So the smart small businesses subcontract that work.
So after they've built this system that they're going to use to hire people and do that online, are there any hidden gems in job boards or job posting sites that people are definitely looking at? So I know for us, like we use Indeed and LinkedIn. Are there any hidden gems in the construction industry that can certainly help find workforce, people to come into the workforce?
I think the two you mentioned are basically it. I haven't seen anything construction specific. This Missouri.byf.org, we try to push information there, and there's a job board there. I think there are some localized job boards in different cities that maybe some trade press have, or places like that. I'm the chair of the state workforce board for the state of Missouri. And I know that the state workforce system has a new strategic plan that we've been working on for job centers connected, so that we can have all the state job agencies all connected. You know, there are a dozen or more job centers across the state of Missouri that are publicly funded, that don't cost me anything to post a job, that have send it out to all the folks who receive any sort of benefit from the state, and also anybody that's looking for a job. So I wouldn't be spending my time as the chair of the state workforce board if I didn't think the public system, you know, the private system, the Indeed and LinkedIn are great, but the public system is making a significant investment in technology to connect all the job centers, so that if I'm in St. Louis or Kansas City or Jefferson City or Springfield, I can go into my job center free of charge, go online, and I can look at all the construction jobs across the state.
Sure.
So that is another portal for people to go to. Where we're working with veterans organizations that folks, whether it's the VA, has another place that folks can go and look for work opportunities. So those are other good opportunities.
So Len, I know we could sit here and talk literally all day. Unfortunately, people don't love listening to things all day. So, Monica, do you have any more questions? Or Len, do you have anything that you feel like we didn't touch on today that really we need to bring to the light about using tech to hire construction employees?
I think the main message as far as the tech is that it's a way to get your company or your opportunities. Using technology effectively does sort of bring reality into a format like this, that you don't want people stumbling around on the job site. You don't want people out there where they could get hurt or worse, to experience the joy and the excitement of a construction career. And technology in the last 10 years really has allowed us to bridge that gap. So using that effectively is good. Using the Missouri.byf.org is great. Listening to the iPodcast AGC Mo thing helps you understand what's going on in the industry. So it's not coming, it's here. The VR goggles, autonomous vehicles, all those sort of things are hitting our industry, and the smart company owner is ready.
And I think if people can think about the hiring experience more like they think about the sales experience and
Mhm.
realize that a lot of the things that you share with people publicly to gain their business are the same things that you need to share with new hires. It's just the act of actually engaging in talking about your company and sharing with other people what you do, that they can bridge that gap, because that application coming in it's like the final step. That's what I'm hearing you say, is like there's all these things beforehand. There's the educational piece, and then they're like aware, and then they go to your website and they check you out, or they go to your social media presence and they check you out. If there's nothing there, then they might just move on to the next company that has that kind of thing. So it's a much longer funnel than what we think it is. We're like, oh, we should just place an ad on LinkedIn and then we'll get lots of applicants. And because of the educational gap, we have to fill all that in with positive messaging, both from organizations like AGC of Missouri and also from the individual organizations doing their part to share how awesome their companies are. Because I know that our construction clients tend to be humble, and they're like men of few words. And so they don't want to talk a lot about themselves. And it's always fun to extract that information.
Yeah, it's, I understand that. They like building stuff.
They do. And we love building stuff for them because it is very fun, because it's like so cool to be part of something so big. We always say that we like to build stuff for people who build things that are harder than the things that we build.
Yeah.
Because it makes
So
you feel
building
important.
roads is harder than building websites for some.
For
It
sure.
doesn't rain on a website.
Yeah. Isn't that true? Well, thank you so much for your time today, Len. I really appreciate it. Why don't you let people know where they could go online to learn more about AGC?
Learn more about AGC by visiting our website at www.agcmo.org. All the description there of what we do, see who our members are, visit our podcast, visit our workforce opportunities. So agcmo.org, it's easy to find.
And what platforms can they listen to your podcast on, Len?
They can listen on any platform they want to, Google, Apple, Spotify, you name it. It's all out there. And I put a social media post out every week when if you follow us online, we put a LinkedIn and a Twitter and a Facebook announcement out for every podcast that comes out with a link to them right there.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it. And thank you, Stacy, for co-hosting with me. It was so great to not hang out on the island by myself today. And until next time, everybody, go forth and market with purpose.